As you can see, the title is pretty descriptive. We're gonna talk about how to move from DevOps to DevOps. And the agenda is fairly straightforward. So first we're going to look at what the present is, things as we know, and what's causing problems and blocks to move to the proper DevOps. Then we're gonna talk how we can do DevOps today, and then a bit about the future, how we should be doing it as we go, and some new cool technologies come in. For those who don't know me, my name is Danijel Malik. I am a Microsoft MVP for Visual Studio ALM. Actually, this has changed not too long ago, so now I am an MVP for, Visual Studio and Development Technologies. I think it could be even better, you know, if they made it like Visual Studio and Development Technologies with Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio Online and Release Management. So that would be even longer if they wanted to do it. Anyway, I care a lot about Visual Studio, TFS, nice methodologies like Scrum. I'm looking at Nexus framework now, which is Scrum at scale and things like that. And I'm all into DevOps things. Before we start, I want to give you a bit of a glimpse into the future. So what we'll be doing in the future. You'll be doing 10 or more deployments per day. If you're not doing that yet, that's what you'll be doing. And your code will be deployed to a Docker container. That container will travel through different stages until it reaches production. And in the transition, automated tests and load tests will occur based on the way you will be configuring them. What is very important is that you'll be learning from usage, and that means that the product owner role will change in the future. I'm making a bold statement here, but I promise you that by the end of this session, you will understand exactly why I wrote down these things. But to understand the future, we have to go back in time. So, the present as we know it. We have three different roles, right? We have developers, we have IT, and we have business. All good so far? Yeah. So developers are the guys who throw the pig over the wall. And guess what? IT ops are the guys who are trying to keep the pig alive. As for the business, they are the guys who think that the pig can fly. We all agree about that, right? Okay. So another thing about that is there is always a clear line between IT and developers. Right? And there is always a clear line between business and IT department. Do we all agree about that? Well, wrong. Everything is business. There is no such thing as IT department, and that's so old-fashioned. And the reason why so, if you look at how many companies nowadays actually have IT department in there, how many are producing their own software? I actually heard about a statement not too long ago that every single company today is a software company as well. And if you think about it, how much their business relies on IT, you can't just say they are just a department. You can't just outsource them always. There is a lot of, coupling between the two of them. And that's why everything is just business. There is no IT. And if we keep looking at IT only, there is always a problem and we'll never come to the way where we're doing proper DevOps. Okay, we're gonna start with some bad practices. So, before we start actually, how many of you are doing Scrum? Only a few? Come on, raise your hands, it's not a problem. Don't be shy. Okay, so what bad practices do we have with Scrum? Well, first we'll talk about bad development team. They are disorganized, okay? So they are not showing up for daily Scrum, their marketing is done without product owner's agreement and so forth. They don't see a big picture, so they're gold plating, and the core is still broken. They don't have any DOR and DOD. Do you know what DOR is? Okay, one knows. Definition of ready. Okay, we're gonna save that for some other time. That's why you fill in that category, bad development team. You don't follow a DOR. And then what is DOD? Anyone knows what's DOD? Okay, only two. Definition of done. Something to think about it. Okay, the problem number 3, they don't deploy regularly, of course, because they don't see the big picture, they deploy whenever they feel like. And one of the major reasons why all this is happening, because people don't talk to each other. So if you think about it, how you're talking with your colleagues at work, I'm pretty sure that you're doing a good job, but there is always room for improvement. So that doesn't mean you're starting chattering about every single thing, but communication is a very important thing. And finally, their code sucks, right? Good development team doesn't write bad code. Well, it's really difficult to say because your baby is ugly. That's a fair statement to make. Whenever I have seen somebody else's project, it's always, ooh, your baby is ugly. And I'm pretty sure the others say about mine code too. However, what I often see with the clients when we're doing code reviews or things like that, there is always a framework madness, especially with JavaScript. You know, I have seen a project when we started with Backbone, and there is some knockout in there, AngularJS on top of it, and there is what's that thing? No, I forgot. That you can require JS and all sort of things. So framework madness, one on top of each other, having a single page application, and when you press F5, you have to start all over again. Great. So we come back to the thing that's called anti-patterns in solution architecture. So as we have patterns in solution architecture, we also have anti-patterns. You know, not everything you come up with is always good. And I don't know how many of you guys know patterns like CQRS, things like that. None of them. Okay, I have seen an example when I was back in Slovenia, spending some time with my friends and family. And there was an application for 10 users, and they implemented CQRS, which is quite advanced pattern. I'm not going to discuss it in details, but they could easily go with something like CRUD and so forth. So guys thought that, oh yeah, CQRS is really cool, and that's why we're going to do it, and that's the way to go. But as it turns out, for 10 users, you just don't provide the value back to the business if you go down this path, and they didn't even think about these options. So if I'm coming back, anti-patterns in solution architecture are way common, more than you actually think that they are. A lot of things that a lot of projects that I see, they don't have unit tests at all. Very rarely you can see test-driven development or things like that. How many of you are writing unit tests regularly? Only a few, okay. What else? What other tests are you doing? Integration tests? A few. What about load tests? Only one. What else? Code EDI test? Okay, pretty good. Okay. Doesn't really matter. We're talking about the practices, not about the tools. Tools are just as an accelerators, nothing else. Okay, now here comes the big one, what we really like to do. These are workarounds, right? I'm not gonna spend 2 hours on this bug fix. I know how to do it properly. I'm gonna just tweak it here and there, and then it's gonna work. And that's why we call all this enterprise, right? This is enterprise software solution. Now that's all about the development team. There are a lot of things I could point out. It's not, the goal is not to say, okay, how bad we are, but how we can move forward. Anyway, I'm still gonna address some things about the bad Scrum Master, right? So mostly Scrum Master thinks, yeah, I'm a project manager and I can control the team instead of being a facilitator, so I'm not removing the impediments, I'm actually being a block by myself. Of course, it's nice to have some status reports here and there. If not that, at least I can restructure some of the things in the sprint so that it will fit my goals that I'll present to the stakeholders. So I'm taking a bit of the product owner role as well. Actually, I have a nice video for you. You're going to see that what Scrum Masters do. They're really great. Come on. There we go. So can I make this full screen and move it to the other one? No. Okay, rush. Sound is not coming through. Let me just see. Sorry? Okay, let's fix this. Is the sound coming through now?
No, there's nothing on the screen.
I know, but still it should come up from here. Okay. So it's not gonna work, right? Well, okay. Guys, I have a link here, so if you write it down, check the video, Bad Scrum Master. It's really hilarious what guys are coming from. No, we're just gonna skip it then, it's not a problem. It's just a video, I just wanted to show how bad things can go with the Scrum Master. And then we come to the final guy, which is a bad product owner. Now this one is good. It's, hold on, let me fix that. So how often do you see product owner changing requirements on the fly? Oh, I don't know what I want to do. You figure it out, and then I'll just tell you if I'm happy. No, I didn't want this, you know, I want it the other way around. No, it's not done. You haven't done it. The acceptance criteria is not filled because I don't know what I want, and things like that. Often I see not products well defined, not defined at all. So you come to Team Foundation Server or whatever tool are you using, and then you see what is the expected thing, and it's empty. That's pretty nice. What about daily Scrum? Well, most of them think that this is a daily report, and then we start talking, oh yeah, but I want to have this feature too, you know? How about if we, you know, have a look at what's happening down there? There is a bug in production, you know, how about if you fix that? Well, they start thinking about it like another planning meeting instead of having just, you know, time with the team and listening what they're saying. Actually, they were not supposed to say anything at all. And of course, because they think about planning meeting is daily Scrum, they don't turn up for the proper sprint planning, which is even worse. And when you call them for additional explanation, they usually don't have time. But what is the worst of all? They have to take all responsibility. They don't get zero power. So that's how it is with bad product owners. And I see all these things not in real with clients, you know, when I'm seeing them on site and I'm working on their projects, it's pretty, you know, amazing how they can actually get through that mess. Okay, what about bad IT? So often what I see, they roll out things, they don't tell you about it, and all of a sudden things don't work anymore for you. Actually, I had an interesting situation not too long ago when they rolled out a new proxy, and they had an old proxy somewhere in place, and most of the guys were there, and then they pushed out new servers to the new proxy, and all our apps were there, and the database was on a different one, and the two of you couldn't talk to each other anymore. So I think it took us a couple of days to figure out what is actually happening, let alone some other issues. So we spent some time fixing things that were not broken, but thanks to IT, they made a party before Christmas. They like to tweak things in production, of course. Why would we do it in staging? It's an extra work. We don't want to do that. So often they won't even give you staging because that means that they will have to tweak that. Anyway, and what's even more fun is they have a long checklist for deployments. So how many of you were last here at the user group when I was presenting about release management? Oh, nobody. Anyway, I explained a story about how one company from America, it's called Knight Capital Group, I think so, they got bankrupted in 45 minutes, and that's because they deployed to 7 out of 8 servers, and they had a bug there in code, which actually caused all sort of mess. So the stocks were running up and down, and the price was just varying too much, and they made a loss of 460 million in 45 minutes. So the next day they were dead. Okay, we're coming back to the deployment. This is somewhere between the IT and the development team, okay? IT team, X copy for the win. Whatever you ask them, they like this. And the developers, they really like one-click deploy from Visual Studio. How many are using this? Okay, I'm not pointing fingers. You're not on the camera, so don't worry. Are you the advanced guys who are pushing things out to production using the continuous integration? Who's using continuous integration? 1, 2, okay. What if I say that even this is not okay? Okay. The final bit, testing, okay? So what I hear often, oh, my solution isn't big. It's just for 10 users. Yeah, so what? And another one is we don't have really UI bugs, many UI bugs, so we're not going to do any UI testing at all. Actually, it's just too expensive because it takes so much time to put it together. But what I saw just recently is that some of the guys are starting using IntelliTest. So who of you have heard about IntelliTest? Okay. How about smart unit tests? Okay. What about packs? Oh, one has heard about packs. So the thing is, it's the same thing, and it's been dragging it around for 4 or 5 years, if not even more. And the idea behind IntelliTest is that it can provide you pretty good code coverage. I'm not going to go into details what it does, but guys started abusing that, thinking, yeah, I'm going to get good code coverage, but it doesn't test your business logic. So, and they're presenting these things like, yeah, we're actually writing unit tests the other way around after we write the logic. Okay, what happens after we deploy? Any idea?
Bugs.
Huh?
Bugs.
Okay, bugs. What else? Okay, we're getting close. Sorry, say it again. Integration issues, okay. Well, what I see most often, champagne, what else? The IT will cover the rest. That's how it goes. But the real question is, if we start thinking about it, what's the cost of a failure? And if you ask Microsoft, I didn't do the research myself, but the consequences of inefficiency. We have those 3 teams, so devs, IDOps, and business. And what is quite interesting is that 40% of the implementations are getting reworked because they were not implemented properly in first time, because it didn't meet the original requirements. And what is even worse is that usually it takes 200 minutes to figure out what happened in production before they can repair that and roll out a hotfix. Now, I don't know if this would apply to Australia. $100,000 per hour seems quite a lot. I think that in US they have a bit inflated numbers, but still, even if it is $10,000 per hour, that's quite a lot, considering if that's really true, 200 minutes per incident, that means that we're losing roughly, how much? Close to $35,000 per incident, which is quite a lot of money. Anyway, there are some other stats around this, like how many companies have adopted agile methodologies and how performant are the IT teams. Surprisingly, is that collaboration block holders they have no executive support, and there is a culture, what's that? Inhibitors. Okay. So these numbers are quite interesting, but when it comes back to why this is all happening, you'll see that in 54% that it's more likely that teams are performing well if they are collaborating well. And one of the surprising facts is that 1 out of 6 IT decision makers haven't heard about DevOps before, which is really bad. Which means that now we're actually moving to decide what is DevOps. Any idea before we start?
It's like 2 words together.
Okay. Good. So say it again. Okay, one is saying that it's a new skill set. One is saying that we're combining 2 different worlds, developers and ops. What else? Costs. Okay. What else? Okay, I'm not gonna push you, but DevOps is about culture change. Collaboration is the big wheel that has to turn in DevOps, and then we can start thinking about the process and the products. So first one is people. It's the entire change. You can actually consider tools and all that stuff, what is involved, but its major thing is about culture change, how we see things, not here is the peak, I'm gonna throw it over the wall, IT guys be prepared, otherwise it's gonna die. However, like you guys were trying, this is how people see DevOps, Oh, they're trying something here and there, and everyone thinks that's DevOps, right? But DevOps is about collaboration, it's about automation, it's about small deployments, it's about feature toggling, and so forth. We could shred it down to 4 categories. One is about planning, and then we have development, we have releases, so deployments, and the last bit, which is very important, is monitoring and learning, and that's what we were usually just trying to avoid, but that's something that's really powerful, and we'll see later how we can make it work in our favor. So first thing is planning. Let's say we start a new project, and even if we don't, doesn't really matter. We will usually meet up with a product owner, and then we'll do the initial meeting, and from there on we'll probably create some requirements, or he will populate the backlog and we'll do the grooming, and after some time we'll plan the first sprint, okay? And regarding managing work and tracking progress, there are quite a few tools outside. How many of you know Jira? I'm sure you must have. How many of you know TFS, Visual Studio Online? Okay, there are some other tools there. Personally, I recommend TFS, of course, but Jira is pretty good too. And then you can have boards like this, so you can track how much work is being done, what it's doing, what is in progress, and all that stuff. So this is the new look of Visual Studio Online. It's pretty handy, so I really, really like it. Okay, what about development and testing? So things here are pretty straightforward. You write code regardless of what tool you use. I don't care about if you're doing the iOS development, or if you're doing any kind of mobile apps like Android, Windows Phone. Doesn't really matter if this is a web app, whatever. Pretty much the concept is the same. You write the code, you write some unit tests around the code. Preferably you would start the other way around. Write some unit tests, do some coding, and then after red-green refactor, you'd have things done. Then you come up to version control, which only makes sense. So how many of you are using version control, whatever kind? So I had heard about some of, okay. Doesn't matter what you're using, Git, Team Foundation, whether you're using GitHub, Stash, on the Atlassian stack, whatever. From version control, you will normally want to push out the build, right? So continuous integration, I don't think that it'll be, how many of you are using continuous integration? 3, 4, okay. So continuous integration is every check-in you make, it's going to create a build, and then it's up to you what you're going to do with it. So from version control on that build, normally you would have some build verification, how good the code is, and maybe if it's good enough, you're going to deploy it, so we come to release. But there is one very important bit that we're missing in this story. Any idea where? So if you look at the flow of how we should be working, what is missing in that flow? Say it again. Testing is there. We have unit testing there. Staging. Okay, that will be happening after we do a release, right? So when you deploy something, you'll be doing testing, because you'll see later why. But okay, testing is an option. Sorry? No, there are releases to, you'll see. We're a little bit in front of the session now. Okay, I'm not gonna tease you. It's analyzing technical debt, and that's gonna happen between build and build verification. Why is that so important? You know, when you're coding, it doesn't really matter who of the team is checking in things. If you don't look after your stats, how bad the code is, and trust me, it gets bad over time, it's really difficult to pay off the technical debt, and it's going to come back, not the first day, but it's going to come back after some time, and it's going to bite you hard. And that's why we have to start analyzing technical debt somewhere between build and build verification. So ideally, and I'm going to show you later how, you should set up a build definition, which is a continuous integration, so that you would have check-in. Each check-in triggers a build. Run your unit tests as part of the build. And if you're using Git, which you should, I'm going to explain in a minute why, you can set up a pull request with the required build definition. So this looks like something, looks like this. this is Git on TFS, and what I have here, I can set up what. Hold on, is my cursor coming over there? Ah. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, but it's being hidden. Fine. Anyway, as you can see that drop down, I have a git CI, that's a build definition. And what I require with that is that whenever somebody creates a pull request, by the way, do you know what pull requests are? Okay, only a few. I'll explain for the others. So with Git, branching is fairly easy now. You don't have to do it like in Team Foundation version control, which was pretty hard. So branches are pretty small. You do a bunch of things there, and then you can merge it back fairly easily. So you do that very often, pretty much for every feature you want to write. And pull requests, you can create a pull request to pull the code from the guys who have checked in their stuff into different branches. And why this approach with pull requests is so nice. Because then I can control who is committing code into my main repository in master. Right? With Team Foundation version control, you could set up the gated check-in, but that's different. That's going to require the build to run before you can check in. And that's a block on the development side. You don't want to have that. Plus, it's going to roll for a long time. Now, with Git, we can have multiple branches, and we don't care. And we can commit those changes as we go, regardless of what the quality of the code is. But when we create a pull request, we get all the changes from all those branches, and then we can control if that build, so if I set a build there, doesn't succeed, I can say, okay, I don't want to have this code in my master repository. So I'm going to go back to my developers, and I'm going to say then, look, guys, this failed for some reason, and I want you to fix that. Whether is that the code doesn't compile, or if the technical debt is too high. And I'm going to show you how you can control the technical debt. So if one of my guys writes a bad code, I want to know what happened and how I'm going to pay that debt off. So with the build definition, I can set up, hold on, we're coming to technical debt, but with the build definition, I can control how good the quality is. And if it's not good enough, I'm just going to reject that. But first, we have to understand why technical debt is so important. As I said before, if we don't control it early enough, it's going to come back later and it's going to bite us hard. And I have a problem on one of the projects where that framework madness started to just rise. It's really difficult to analyze what is happening in the code and what are the routes, because there was backbone, there was marionette on top of that, there was some knockout and things like that. So I had to look in like 40 different places to figure out what is happening, you know, and there was Mustache to render things and so forth. Completely chaotic environment. And if we started controlling that early enough, we could probably have something reasonable to maintain. And now the application is inches away from being rewritten. That's the way it is. But the question is, how can we measure technical debt? And what tools can we use? So, how many of you have heard about SonarQube? I think I asked that before. Only one, okay, 2. So what SonarQube is? Visual Studio family, that includes Team Foundation Server and all the tools around that, doesn't provide you anything that can analyze the code pretty nicely. Well, there are some things like code analysis, but it's not that straightforward. The thing is that SonarQube, it has been around for ages in Java world, and it's, I would say, mainstream on their end. And the cool thing about SonarQube is that I can set some quality profiles, and I can analyze different types of code. I can analyze C#, Java, JavaScript, CSS, whatever I want. So these are my quality profiles. And then I have quality gates. I can settle for what is acceptable to me. So if there is something wrong with the code, can I live with that or not? And with the quality gates, I can control if my developer is going to check in a change that I don't want. This is going to tell me, and it's going to tell me that the technical debt is going up. The good thing about this is that it's going to tell me how long it will approximately take to fix it. Now we're starting to talk about measurable technical debt. We can see the number of errors. I'm going to show you a report in a minute. And then we can, from there, we can work out how long it will take to pay off this debt. Now, like if you go to the bank and if you take a loan, you probably don't want for this loan for going out for too long, right? You want to pay it off as soon as you can. And it's the same thing here. Now we're coming to the third part, which is going back to Visual Studio. And that's new thing with Visual Studio 2015 Update 1. You know, if you inherit a project from someone, it's really difficult to say, okay, I'm going to start from scratch, because if you see 5,000 errors or 5,000 warnings, it's just going to kill you, right? So you have to set up a baseline and say, okay, I don't care about those 5,000. I'm going to fix them as I go. But I want to know that I don't introduce anything more than that. So you can set up a baseline, and you start from 0, and Visual Studio will measure those things for you, and you'll see how much you're actually increasing your technical debt or decreasing. And the idea is that you can actually, whenever you touch a file and you're making some fixes there, it's going to tell you how much debt is in that file. And ideally, you should fix those things as you go. Well, there is a bit of a problem there. What about if my file has 5,000 lines, which is not too uncommon? You're not going to fix that all. So Microsoft is working towards the direction that you would fix only things that are being affected by you. If that means the overridden method in some different class, that's what you want to fix. So one bit of logic, not the entire file, because the file might have something different in there. So does that make sense so far? It's pretty brand new. It might be a bit confusing. I want to add some comments to this. Now it's a good time to say, yeah?
So is it something that replaces actual code reviews?
Not really. I wouldn't say so. So the question was if SonarQube is something that replaces actual code reviews. I wouldn't say so. You know, code reviews, the beauty about code review is that somebody else looks at your changes and he gives you feedback. Now SonarQube is going to come back and it's going to tell you this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. Okay? But your developer will look at the logic. SonarQube's not going to analyze your logic. So you might still write within the rules, but your code might still suck. Does that make sense?
So does it, what does it measure? It measures like how many classes that you refer, how many...
Things like that. There are rules like, are you familiar with static code analysis in Visual Studio? It's very similar to that. You have a bunch of rules, and it's going to measure your code. So there are two ways how it actually analyzes your code. It's a static analysis and dynamic analysis. One is running on top of the compiled binaries, and one is running against the code. Don't ask me about the details. I haven't written this thing, but that's how it's running. And what it's going to do, it's going to just look at things that are not okay in terms of the rules. So pretty much like our code auditor, we just scan the code and we say, okay, a web config file, we should put clear between before we start any HTTP modules and things like that. If we want to say we don't want to catch generic exceptions, like if you do try catch, right? We don't like that because it's a tempting bomb, or it's going to hide important piece of information, and that sort of things SonarQube is analyzing. And based on that, it's going to tell you, okay, this is an issue. It's not good that you're writing code this way, and this is approximate time to fix this. And then it's going to tell. I'm going to go into details in 2 months from now when I'm going to do a session. Yeah?
So just to sum up, to understand, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
It sounds like when you're getting someone else's millions of lines or hundreds, thousands of lines of code,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. But in the other case, if you have a team and developing a product and you have a code review process already present, I mean, your code reviewer should also tell you, oh, man,
Yeah, it is a good point, but it's not that straightforward. So the thing is, if you're doing a code review, somebody is looking over your code, and he may use some tools to verify how good is your code. So there are quite a few things out there. The first one is ReSharper, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people are using. Maybe not, but still, we always recommend it to everyone. And there is one from Ndepend, which is a mind-blowing thing. It does all sort of things for you. Usually is that for the ultimate architects who are looking into bad things in code. It's really advanced stuff and quite hard to use. Now, if your colleague doesn't use any of this, how will you know that he did a really good code review? So he might have checked your logic and you might be happy with that, but there is still a probability that you did something that doesn't work for the rest of the team. I don't know who's doing code reviews for you. So there are a lot of things. So there is still a line between SonarQube, which is analyzing technical debt, or the other way around. Let's say you're a big company and you're outsourcing your development. So you want to get the source from your developers. And if there are two different teams that are working on the same product, I don't think the two of them will do a code review, but they might check in different things. So with SonarQube, you can easily put that, you can easily put SonarQube between the build and the pull request. And when you're pulling out something from their repositories, you can just say, okay, guys, quality is not good enough. SonarQube is going to tell you this. So this is how it's actually looking. This is with Visual Studio Online, but you can set it up with Team Foundation Server 2013 up. I think I have another slide there that shows those things. And as you can see, that's a new thing. We have two different tasks. How many of you are familiar with the new Visual Studio build? Team Foundation Server build? Okay, what about XAML build? Hold on. Some of you were saying you're using continuous integration. Oh, nice. We have TeamCity. I don't know if that works with TeamCity, but I'm 90% sure that it does. So this new build is pretty much a stolen copy from TeamCity. It's very similar. You have nice tasks. You can change the order fairly easily. And that's what we have here. We have SonarQube begin analysis, and then we have SonarQube end analysis. And in between that, what happens, we run the build and we run the unit tests. And SonarQube is going to pull in all the information it gets, what happens in between. And then it's going to come up with a nice report, and it's going to tell me, okay, these are the issues I have found. And as you can see a little bit above that orange square, there is what is the technical debt ratio. And I want to bring that down as soon as I can. And SonarQube is going to analyze this every time I run a build. So let's take a few steps back. If I have a continuous integration in place, if that continuous integration runs on top of my pull requests, if it's going to run SonarQube, then I'm going to see exactly what is happening with the code I'm getting in. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is how a report in TFS looks like. Somebody are retweeting my stuff. And from here on, I can know, so this is a successful build, but if it wasn't that good, it would come up with a worse report, and then it could actually fail the build. And I can then control whether I still want to accept the changes, but I'm pretty sure that if the build fails, you won't be too happy to have those changes in. So this is just the metrics of where SonarQube is supported. So how many of you are using Visual Studio Online? None. Personally, okay, but not for okay, one is using it for work. Good. The rest are on Team Foundation Server on premises? No? Okay, what are you using?
For integration?
Yeah. No, but for source control.
Oh,
Git. Okay. I think that it works with TeamCity, but still, you could probably integrate it fairly easily with PowerShell. That's what you can do even if you're using Team Foundation Server 2013. Guess what? They don't have out-of-the-box support for XAML build, and it's the only right thing to do because it's about time that the XAML build dies. So the new build is the way to go, and they have full support for that. So if you want to play with that, create an account on Visual Studio Online. It will be very easy to play with these things, very easy. But anyway, you can wait for 2 months and you're going to see all this live. Okay. Now we come to release. So that's our third key point that's in here. Okay? And that's where the testing happens. Okay, so you're going to create a release and you're going to deploy that somewhere. So unit tests were executed. Now we're coming to the automated UI tests. Okay? So you can't run automated UI tests on the previous version of your source and then you're going to deploy it, right? You have to do it the other way around. So after you deploy, then you run the automated UI test, and they're going to tell you, okay, if that is okay or not. The next thing is the integration tests. You could probably run that before you deploy code, but then you're not knowing if that really works in the right environment. And the third thing is very important. It's cloud load testing. So you're going to stress out your application, see how good performance is, maybe run some smoke tests first, and then when you're doing the real testing, you're actually seeing how good that is, so maybe in a different environment. And then you come to staging, where things are supposed to be pretty much ready. And you can push them later to production. But those three things, so automated UI testing, integration testing, and load testing are very important. Now, how many of these are you doing? How many are you doing automated UI? How many of you are you doing automated UI testing? One and a half. Half. What is half? You're doing it, but it doesn't work. Okay.
The amount of tests, so it's usually the testing parameter, so unit test is the highest percentage, then you have integration test, then if time permits, UI automation is taking place.
Okay, so the comment was we're doing mostly unit tests, and then we're doing integration tests on top of that, and if you have some things to do on the UI, you're doing UI tests. Okay, that's good. That's two, not one. You're doing everything, so you get a bonus. What about the other guy who said half? You, sir?
I guess we have a funny situation where another team writes the automated unit test, UI test.
Okay.
And so they come up and tell us when and we pass it on.
Oh, okay.
Development and project teams don't really own the automated tests, which is a bit funny.
Wow, that's a surprise. So the comment was the development team doesn't write the unit tests, some other team does, and they're
Development writes unit tests, but
yeah,
the
not automated UI
automated
test.
test.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting, yeah, that somebody else out of your scope is doing that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you know that this fits in the bad category. Okay, so as you can see, I have another triangle there at the end, an error, whatever you wanted. It's a monitor and learn. That's the final bit we're doing. But before we go to that stage, I want to show you how you can control the release pipeline. So now another slide. Before we deploy, what do we do? How many of you have to send out the release notes? Nobody, okay. One joined from two. Not bad. But how do you get them? Sorry?
You have your tickets in Jira, Agile board, whatever you use.
Okay, so you pull them out. How do you do that? You write every single thing in the Word document and then you send it out, or in an email?
No, there are tools that automatically retrieve that from Git.
Okay, and how are you going to know what exactly is being pushed out? So let's say I have something in production that has been deployed 14 days ago, and I want to know, what it has been deployed in those 14 days, because not every single version goes out to production, right?
Yeah, but they have the hashtag, so you know which hashtag is the deployed one. So between them is the release one.
It depends what you're using. For example, in our case, we're using the Jira portfolio.
Okay.
We have initiatives, and initiatives are release-based. So you can tell from your initiative when it was released and the date and the epics or stories in an epic. So you have them in a monthly dashboard.
So you can get out the notes for the past 14 days, not for the last. Okay.
Which release you want, that gives you everything.
That's good, and you can generate that.
But it's there.
Yep, that's really nice. For those of you who are using Team Foundation Server, you don't get anything like this out of the box. So each time you make a build, it's going to pull out the changes from the last build. So there will be missing things. So if one build is supposed to go to production, if we're considering we have a continuous integration, that build will travel through different stages. We may stop somewhere because it may fail QA. And then the next one is not going to have those changes because the new changes are coming in, so we're losing those ones. So with Team Foundation Server, things are a bit tricky. The best thing is to generate them using PowerShell. How many of you know Octopus? 2? Okay, 3. So Octopus Deploy is a pretty nice tool. I'm going to show it to you. But what I can do from there, I can tell what version is being deployed to production based on the life cycle or on the name of the environment, whatever. And then I can get the date when that was pushed to production. And what I do from this moment on, I go to Team Foundation server and I tell him, okay, this is the date when thing went to production. I want to know about every single thing that was marked as resolved or closed in the meantime, from today or from this moment on to what was back in the past. And then I can get a nice release notes document. So this script will be published in Octopus Deploy. There is one task that's coming for build. I'm working with one of the guys there. So it's going to go in there, but I'm going to publish it on the blog. So if you want to try to generate release notes using Octopus as you're going through different environments, feel free to do so. Okay, so the question here is, how can we now deploy? Well, we have a couple of tools. Personally, we use Octopus Deploy, and release management is keeping up with it. Not that fast as we would hope so, but it's still there. There are a couple of other things. You have Chef, Puppet on the other side of the Microsoft world. But we're talking about these things. You can also deploy Docker containers already. So this is very early stage, but if you're looking at the Linux, it's a mainstream there. It's been there for ages. So finally, it's coming up on the Microsoft stack. With Windows Server 2016, CDP3, I think that the containers are in. So you can start using Docker containers. I'm going to explain about the Docker later, what it is, but in the future, you'll be deploying Docker containers, not applications. You can already do that with release management. It requires a bunch of PowerShell scripts. I'm pretty sure you don't want to write them. So ideally, the tool should provide you the option, right? To create a Docker container, tell, okay, this is my app, deploy everything, and I'm done. So that's where we want to go. So for automated, yeah.
In Azure, it's already there, right?
Yeah, in Azure you already have the Docker containers. Yeah. In Azure you have that. Okay, so why automated deployments? That's the first question. Come on. Repeatable, okay. What else? Cheaper. Okay, maybe. What else? Reliable, okay, that's good. Anything else? No? Okay. The first thing is we can control the approvals. That's something that people don't even care about, but it's very important. Because as developers, we shouldn't have any access to production environments, and approvals should be done by those who actually own the product, not by us. And that's the gate we have there. Approvals are done by other people, not by developers. Those who are actually taking care of the deployments. And these are, I don't know, delivery managers, whatever you want to call them. They will control the approvals. So to some stage, to testing, we may push it. From testing, it may be pushed to staging from the QA team, right? It's not going to be pushed by us. Otherwise, I would push it to production. I'd say, okay, fine, right? But I can push it to dev. And from dev, I don't have any power anymore to push it to test. It's going to be the test team who's going to control that. Maybe they're keeping up with the version. Maybe they are not. So maybe they'll take the latest version every single week, not what you're pushing to the dev environment 10 times a day, right? So they want to control that approval when it goes there. The second thing is we control the bits deployed, right? So it's not like I'm doing a build and then it's going to staging, and I'm doing a build and it's going to production, right? It's the same bits that are being deployed over and over to different stages. And that's where we control the flow. We can't say I'm going from dev to QA or to production straight away. I'm just going from dev to test, and then I'm going to QA and production and so forth. Of course, tools won't block you with that, but they give you the power that you can control it. How many of you think that this is valuable? Okay. A few. For the others, what do you think about it? It's too hard? Okay. Yeah, of course.
The approval process contradicts with the whole
Yeah, why not?
Because DevOps means developer is a trustable entity and they can do everything that IT does, but then control of the approvals.
But that's just a single click. So just for the
Developers now, because you're giving the power to developers to do everything, but then when it comes to the switch from testing to production, now you're afraid of developers.
Okay, let me clarify. First, the question was, how does this apply with the DevOps concept? In DevOps, it's not like you trust your developers without any limits or beyond every possible thing. DevOps is about the culture change, about collaboration between developers and IT, and it's not like, okay, here's my pig, catch it, otherwise it's gonna die. It's about, we're gonna talk how to do things, how to make sure that the business gets the maximum value. That doesn't mean we won't put in some gates to control the quality, because if I could deploy straight to production, I can do that already. The thing is that there are some, take it this way. As a development team, I'll be pushing out features as we go. Ideally, each check-in would contain a new feature or a bug fix, right? The test team won't be able to keep up with your pace, right? So they will control the first flow, which means they'll take up the latest version every single day or every week, and they'll do the rough testing, make sure that things are working, right? From there on, they're gonna push this thing to staging or to a different environment where they might throw a bunch of load tests on top of that, see how application is performing, right? And after that, you know, you have to align with the business and see when they actually want to go to production. So it's not like, okay, we're doing it today at 5, because nobody won't be in. So maybe we'll be doing it tomorrow at 9. Or maybe we're having something coming up that is aligned with the business milestone, and we want to push it after that date because we have it in place, we know it's working, but we cannot push it out because there is a marketing team who wants to announce that, and then we want to go live. So there are all sort of things that can happen, and that's why you want to control the flow. But you want to know that this version is ready, and you want to push it to the stage where you can say, okay, I'm just going to flip it over. There are a couple of other things you can control it with feature toggling, which only makes sense. But still, you can't avoid testing and regression testing stages. But that's how you control the flow. So even if in the business, there will be a person who will say, okay, I am pushing this thing live, and that's a matter of a single click, nothing else. It's not like, okay, now we carry on and next copy, right? Okay, so the tools that can help you do that, we have a Visual Studio Release Management, which got nice refreshment, so the UI is now pretty nice. It's happening, it's all in the browser. So I can see here all my releases that are happening. I can see on which stage I have a specific release, how successful the previous one were, and so forth. And if I have to approve things, that's how I do them. So I can say, okay, I will approve this release, and then you can go on to a different stage. And I can see the logs and so forth. I did a session about release management like a year ago, and I did a bit of smackdown between Visual Studio Release Management and Octopus Deploy. If you want to check it, it is on SSW TV. Things haven't changed much in terms of the concept and the tooling, how you can do things. But yeah, there are some new nice features in there. The other tool is Octopus Deploy. Actually, I can show you Octopus Deploy because we're running it on SSW project. So how do I do this now? Just give me a minute. I'm gonna log in to Octopus.ssw. I'm doing it on my screen because on the other one I have some lag, so it's a bit annoying. Never. Okay. So this is SSW instance of Octopus Deploy. Where's the cursor? I can't see it. A little bit tricky. But here what we see is a dashboard. We can see in what stage specific. Yeah, of course. Let's try this. Does this work? Yeah. So what we see here is different stages, and then we can compare, what things have moved to production and so forth. We can see that some of the projects have multiple stages, and they're pushing some things to different environments and so forth. I won't be diving into what Octopus is, but it's probably the best thing on the market so far for deploying applications. We're talking about web applications mostly. It's a bit difficult to do other things, like how many of you are writing Windows apps? How many of you are writing Windows apps? Okay, what are you writing mostly, web? Okay, mostly it's web. So for web, this is probably the best thing to use. And release management from Microsoft is coming up with very cool concept, but we'll see how that goes. It's still a lot of unknowns around that. Let me move back to my presentation. Okay. So with Octopus, I can define a bunch of steps, and that's going to execute on the server. The most important thing is that the process is repeatable. So every time I progress through a different stage, I can control what can happen on the stage, but the idea is that it's pretty much the same thing, and so forth. Now, after we deploy the application, we have it on one stage or the other, doesn't really matter. We start thinking about automated UI testing, right? That's where we're testing the latest bits that we have pushed out. And what we normally use is Selenium tests. We deploy them with the application itself. So what happens is when we deploy the application, we deploy it to Azure, and then we deploy unit tests, Selenium UI tests on one of our testing servers, and then this server is going to run everything against that side. So Shigemi is our guy who's working on sugar learning. So sugar learning is induction system, is that the way to call it? Okay. And everything that he's working and the UI tests that he writes, they are executed as soon as he deploys things to staging. That is all automated. We don't do anything. It's all there. As I mentioned before, this should happen as part of the transition. So it can happen, let's say you're pushing out development bits like hotcakes. Every release goes out to dev. You may probably want to push out everything to test and run the automated UI tests there, not every single time, because then you're going to create a queue on the build, because it's not going to be able to produce that much. I mean, you're going to slow down the reception queue on the Octopus Deploy on the release management, because it's not going to keep up with the tests. Sometimes they take some time, right? So that's why maybe you want to push things to test once a day and run the automated UI tests at that time, not with every single check-in. Does that make sense? Okay. So then we come to load testing. Once our application is there and we say, okay, what we pushed out is looking pretty good. We didn't find any bugs on the UI, and we're assuming that integration tests were pretty good. I skipped the integration tests here, but you get the idea. Then we come to Azure load testing. Azure is pretty good because it gives you all the power you need. You can really smash your server, and you can do geolocated load testing, which means that you can smash it from Japan, you can smash it from US, you can smash it from Brazil, do whatever you want. Azure is there, it gives you the power. It's pretty cool. How many of you are using Azure load testing? Okay. Yeah, okay. That's good. So yeah, I don't know how much it costs, I actually forgot, but it's pretty good what they give you. It's really, really good. Okay. Now we come to the final phase, and this phase is monitor and learn. So we're talking about two different things here. It's monitoring, learn, and feedback from clients. How many of you do any sort of monitoring on your application? Okay, she gave me your in the back there. I barely can see you because I have a light here in the middle. Let's go back to the basics. Nlog, log4net, serial log, whatever. All of you got. Okay, we have something. How many of you are using anything advanced, like application insights, New Relic? Sorry? Raygun, there we go. It's coming up. No, never heard of that one. What is this one?
It's Microsoft. I don't know what exactly.
Oh.
SCOM.
System setup, operation.
Oh, okay, yeah. What do you get out of this one? So it's the comment from public was that they're using Scrum. What do you get from that?
You will have dashboards that will be hooked up to your applications, and they will give you alerts if anything goes wrong, if any server goes down, if CPU is getting high, noise, any issues. If you have a specific exception that are thrown to your event logs, they can be monitored as well. You can hook up any batch or PowerShell to it, and it will keep checking stuff for you.
Okay.
And it will be a full dashboard that will give you lights, traffic lights, whatever you like. You decide
Okay.
what you want.
What about advanced thing? Can you hook in something from your end and say, okay, I want to track specific things?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Performance counters or PowerShells or batch files.
No, about logic specifically, like which features are being used and so forth.
Not that.
Analytics, you mean that?
Yeah, analytics.
So,
No, you can't do that. Okay, anyway. So the good thing about application monitoring is like with tools like Application Insights, it takes you 15 minutes. Then you get familiar with the tool so that you read the blog post and then you put it in your application and you get your insights. Out of the box, it's there. It's really good. So this is how the Application Insights board looks like. And you get all sort of counters there. So you get what are the exceptions that are coming there. Out of the box, you get that. You get performance counters. You actually can see what features are being used. So you can track that. This is not out of the box, but you can still do that. So I'll explain later why this is so important. For New Relic, you can do pretty much similar things. It's just different UI. Some guys prefer that one. Many like Raygun. I don't know. Personally, I don't have any experience with that one, but a lot of people are really happy with it. Okay. So let's say we have the entire application pretty well covered, okay? So we have monitoring in place. We know if the application will go down and things like that. But what will happen if it goes down? What will you do? Sorry, say it again?
Using PagerDuty, stuff like that, and the server's down, something's happening, you get phone calls.
So you get monitoring and you're alerted about that, right? But then you have to go back in and you manually fix the problem?
I'm not sure, I'm not using that system in IT, but yeah, someone gets a phone call and you just remotely connect and fix it.
Okay.
Get a phone call, actually,
Okay, you get a phone call.
from an automated system.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Scrum does the same.
Sorry?
Scrum does the same.
Okay, so Systems Center Operation Manager or whatever that is, does the same. Okay, how many of you are using Netflix? Only 2. Come on, go down to Optus. They're offering 6 months for free. Netflix. Okay, fine. House of Cards is pretty nice, serious. It gets boring in the 3rd season, but up to there it's pretty good. Anyway, why Netflix? Because Netflix wrote a thing that's called Chaos Monkeys. Who heard about Chaos Monkeys? Only one, okay. What Chaos Monkeys do, they randomly kill your servers. And they're monitoring how your application can auto-recover from that. That's the next step you should be thinking about. So Chaos Monkeys is an open source solution, so you can use it. It's working against Amazon Web Services, but it's fairly, well, that's how they say. It's fairly easy customizable, so you can use it with other platforms like Azure, so it shouldn't be that much of a problem. And over time, they have actually built Simian Army, which do a bunch of other things. So they have Dr. Monkey and they have some other things. So there is like 8 or 10 monkeys there, and they're doing all sort of issues. I think that one of them is opening firewall ports and all that stuff. So it's pretty hectic what they can do. And the idea is that you're running those Monk is in the back to see how your application can respond to those type of events. So yeah, pretty cool thing. If you manage to put this thing in, you're not on 90%, you're on 101, so you have to take a step back to get to 100 and think about gathering client feedback, because that's the last bit that we're missing in the loop, right? And we can't forget about the business, because the DevOps is all about business, how to maximize the value for the business. That's why we're pushing all those wheels to make sure that they don't have any negative feedback from their users. So whether we're building an application for the enterprise or for the end consumers, doesn't really matter. We want to have really good feedback from them. So how can we get a feedback from our stakeholders? One way is TFS Feedback Client. Who has heard about it? Okay, one. The other one, what we usually do, and Shigemi will be able to tell you a bit more about it. He's doing that. I think he's our best video guy. So we record done videos for each PBI and we send them to the product owner. And then the product owner can check the video immediately. So if it's a UI change, we'll probably do just a screenshot. But if it's some logic in the back, we'll record the video and he's gonna see it. Okay, this is what is happening, it's pretty good. So when you come to the sprint retrospective, you don't have to demo anything at all. You can just play the videos later if the product owner hasn't seen them before. And the experience is really nice. So because you can show, okay, this is working, now you come, okay, no, it used to work before, but I'm pretty sure it's a little fix, I'll just do it, you know? It's just that bad experience that the product owner gets. Of course, if you're sending him an email, he can reply back with his feedback, and that's how, if you use Think Companion, that's another tool that you can use to close the loop. So from Think Companion, you can extract the email content and you can push it back to TFS, either as a new product item, product backlog item, or as a bug, or whatever you want. So you can close the loop. It's not coming in as a feedback item that you can get from the TFS feedback client, but that's a separate story. And now the final bit, you know, when I was talking about application insights and all those tools, why they're so important? Because you can track exactly which features are being used. And based on that, instead of saying, okay, dear product owner, we think that this feature is really good because we like it, you can tell them exactly, this is how it's being used. When it is in production, you can track the changes and you can say, okay, look, you had a great idea, but it sucks, you know, people are not using it. But based on the other features, we think that this one will be really cool. And now we come back to the beginning when I said that the product owner is dead. Long live the product owner. Product owner role will change. Not to the extent like that it's completely dead, but the DevOps team will actually form a product owner role. And they will be able to tell him, okay, if we go down this path, and we deploy this little feature, we're going to observe it and we'll see how it behaves. And if people like it, we can push a little bit in that direction, or we can push in the other one. Doesn't really matter. But we're not talking about PBIs anymore, but we're talking about hypothetical PBIs, which are coming from the observation and learning. And that's a really important thing because we want to provide the maximum value to the business. And if a product owner walks through the door and says, okay, I have these requirements from my stakeholders, you could say to him, yes, that's fine, but we think that 5 of them are not good and they're not going to work. And the business is all about things that will work for them, right? Who wants to write stuff that doesn't bring value? Actually, there is one forecast that I read from Gartner, is that people will stop paying for what doesn't bring value over the next 5 years. They will stop. If you look at the companies like Hyundai, they're pretty successful because they're producing cars that are quite good for a pretty good value, right? Not everybody can afford a BMW, but if you look at the two of them, there are some things that are different, but the price is the one that's the most different from all. Okay. So this is how the feedback client looks like. Pretty much you can request the feedback from Visual Studio Online. You send that link, you type in the stakeholders' names, who you want to target. You can tell them where the application is, and then you give them some notes. In the third option, you tell them, okay, I want you to focus on that thing. And then it's gonna send them an email. And why this is so nice? Because they're gonna get an email and they can click on the link and say, okay, start your feedback session. Now here's a little catch. You have to have a feedback client installed. It's a one thing to do. You do it once. It's a 2 meg file. You run it and that's it. But what is so cool about it, it's gonna guide the product, the stakeholder or whoever we want to feedback from through different stages. And if we want them to focus on one part first and then on the other one, we're gonna see different items. So in this example, we have just item 1. But the product owner or a stakeholder, he can focus on that thing, and based on that, he can provide us some screenshots, voice, he can record a video. And when he's done with all that, he's gonna push that. You can click a submit. Unfortunately, it's not on the screenshot, but that submit will create a new feedback work item in our TFS, and from there on, we can decide what we're gonna do with that. So that's just one aspect how you can actually track feedback. Anyway, now the last bit that we're missing here in the entire story is, if you remember, I mentioned Docker, right? So why Docker? First question, what is that? Well, we could easily say that the Docker is a replacement for hypervisor in Windows Server or anywhere else. So I'm comparing that with Windows Server because it's the most familiar to me. But that's just an extra layer that's sitting on top of OS, and that's providing you an abstraction of how your apps are going to run. And why should we care about that? If we look at the traditional virtual machines versus containers, you know, we can see that we have guest OS somewhere in the middle, and that's a huge overhead, right? It's gonna burn the resources from each system you build for no good reason. So the hypervisor there, it was a good solution for now, but then now we have something better, right? So the next Windows Server is all about how to remove Windows from Windows Server. That's the question. What Docker will provide there for me is a tiny layer, and that layer is, okay, I can say, I want to have an image of that type of container, and that image can contain SQL Server, it can contain IIS 8 version, with .NET Framework 4.5, whatever I need, that's fine, okay? In the old days, we had to build a VM and set up every single thing on each of those virtual machines. Now we don't have to do that. We will have a bunch of images available at disposal, and I could just say, this is my application, and I know that I need IIS, I need .NET Framework, I probably need SQL, whatever I want. And then I can say, okay, create a container for me that will have all this installed, and then just push my application in that, and then that's it. So we come to the concept when it works on my machine. And why is that so nice? Because instead of, you know, talking with the IT saying, okay, I need to open these ports, you know, I want you to do a bunch of other tweaking, we can do that on the container. We can say, okay, let's create an image that's gonna have all this in, and then we're gonna install a few things on top of that, and then I'm gonna push my app on this, and then I'm done. And now if you imagine, if we go back to the beginning, our code being compiled, it's being pushed out, a Docker container is created, the application gets installed on that, and then we're moving our container to different stages. It's very, very unlikely that this will break because we're pushing everything that we need. And Docker is so lightweight that we don't even care about it. You know, it's just gonna be there and it's gonna do stuff for us. So pushing a container from one stage to another, it's gonna be a very simple thing. So we come back to my promise when I said that you'll be doing 10 deployments per day, and that will go through Docker, and the Docker container will travel through different stages, where all sort of load testing will happen, and that you'll be learning from usage. That was my promise at the beginning of the session. And I want to know, do you see the same way as I do? You think that this is going to be nice?
With the exception of the product owner, is that
It won't be that. It will be different. The DevOps team will form the product owner role.
I guess it is product specific. So depending on what type of products you're dealing with, if you're dealing with stuff that has regulations or legislation or finance, you're not gonna kill your product owner because he's the one in
It's
business.
It's never about killing him.
Like, I'm saying that they will dictate the business value. They will dictate, as much as the developers would be able to have these insights, they will not be able to know what are we talking about seriously. Again, it depends on the program. If you're serving companies like, I don't know, big finance companies and stuff, that they have this team of statistics people that are doing all of this analysis, and they come up with requirements from there, they are the bosses.
Okay, fair feedback, but I tell you what, even they will. So the feedback was, if we have like financial institution that they are doing bunch of analysis, you know, what features they need and all sort of things. You know when is the best thing to write specs? When it's in production, because you know how it works. But the thing is, if the real feedback will very likely come from the users that you normally don't get. Even if you ask them, they will say, yeah, I'm using it. You know, it's like when I'm asking my guys, who's using Code Auditor? Everyone is. When I'll put in the stats, they'll definitely see who's using these things, right? And that's where the insights are coming from. And that's usually interesting to the DevOps team, and they're gonna provide that feedback back to the product owner. You're gonna discuss that. You're gonna think about hypothetical PBIs. There will still be PBIs from the product owner. I never said it's gonna kill the role, right? I just said it's gonna change completely.
Yeah, but if you are applying proper Scrum, that's how it should work from the beginning.
Sorry?
If you're applying proper Scrum, this is how it should work from the beginning, not in the future.
I'll give you a tip. If you want to know more, so the first thing I really suggest to everyone, go read the Phoenix Project book. Has anyone heard about it? It's all about how DevOps works in real life. It's a really good book. I really recommend it to everyone. There are a couple of other things like DevOps Summit if you want to check some videos. But the one for you is go and check the DevOps from Microsoft. You're going to see how Microsoft is doing all this. They have transitioned from completely on-premises software company to cloud-based, so cloud service-based company. So that they're pushing all in direction of software as a service.
I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but not.
I'm not saying that always, but you'll see that you'll be surprised that the feedback you'll be getting from the insights, you'll be able to push it to the product owner and you say, look, these are the stats. You want to do something with them? Fine. I'm not saying you'll be the one who'll be commending them. You'll be providing them the feedback and you will say to them, I think that this is not going to work. That's all about it. If you want to read a bit about the Simian army, that's it too. And guys, time for pizza. So thank you for coming. I'm really happy, so let's jump on it.